Hello, welcome back to another Age of Bison cast a game in the 2v2 tournament series that we've been currently covering on the YouTube channel. I am Sir Sharkdad, your host, joined here by Platypus Slayer. Once again, we have on one side of the map India, being played by our very famous homegrown Gindion, joined here by Gindion AI, who is here playing Ethiopia. And on the other side of the map, we have Nicias, also playing Ethiopia. So we have a bit of a mirror match once again going on. And then Lopsided Fluff playing Russia, which has been pretty much the MVP of the 2v2 so far. Pretty much featured in most every game thus far. And I'm a huge fan of this map, personally. Platypus, what do you think on this matchup and on this map?
Well, first off, Gideon is kind of known for his outlaw builds. Last tournament, he did very good with Desert Archers. Desert Archers have been changed in the patch to cost more pop and have a little bit lower of a multiplier against heavy infantry. So we'll be curious to see if that's what he opens with. I haven't seen too much of Gideon's India, so I'm kind of curious. But this is map good for both of those civs since there are a lot of herdables scattered about that both India and Ethiopia can make good use of. For the Russia and Ethiopia side, Nicias and Lopsided Fluff, they're very good players. They are known for usually playing relatively standard, but nonetheless, they do know how to come up with interesting combos. So I'm looking forward to a pretty competitive series. I know I say that all the time, but both of these players, both these teams, all four of these players are pretty well versed, pretty solid, and strong team players.
I would completely agree with that. We're catching everybody up. We are seeing some action with the explorers in Age 1, going ahead and grabbing, immediately knowing where to go to grab any sort of herdable animals to bring it back into base. Very important for Ethiopia as well, just for the livestock market. We are going to go ahead and check on these decks as well. This is for the Nicias side. So playing Ethiopia, I would say, pretty standard stuff. Some team cards thrown into their camp builder, which would be good. I mean, I know that Nicias and Lopsided Fluff have been enjoying their. I don't think I mean, in the last game we casted of them, there wasn't really much of a forward-based play, so it would be interesting to see that Age 1 card come out. And we obviously got the Cannoneers, Sudanese allies, and some more economic cards there. Let's go ahead and switch over. Let's see what Lopsided Fluff is playing with. A lot of resource cards.
Both these guys have pretty standard Age 2 heavy play, which is smart. I mean, when you're in a 2v2, you can usually expect one team to kind of apply pressure. So having a very stacked Age 2 deck is, I think, pretty important, and especially a map like Kamchatka where there's a lot of angles of attack. And is there a forward aggro on the minimap? South, the wonder symbol in the south.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Oh,
Oh, my goodness. Cheeky.
Vindian and Gideon, they're always known for their kind of pretty clever ways to approach civs. And, I would not, I can actually say this from experience because this is what happened to me in a recent tournament game on this map is you don't really think the aggro would go that way, but it makes sense looking at the map with all the different channels, how easy it is to sneak, a villager or two down and get a forward going. So good on them for really kind of taking advantage of what's probably a dark spot. Can we see Fluffius and Nicias's POV?
Completely blind.
That's Gideon's.
Oh,
Oh no!
completely blind. Completely blind. Can't see it.
And this is tough. When you're up against India, you're always scouting for that aggro, and exactly. It looks like he's saying, "Hey, look in the forward spot, right? Like there's probably an aggro, somewhere there. That's where you'd expect it." But oh, this might be a tough one.
I also wanted to point out that with Gideon, at least, completely different Ethiopia deck, and I just love like a lot of the composition of these civs, despite plenty of complaints from the player base. I think just in terms of balance and everything else, like you can see a completely different kind of Ethiopia play and that are going to be tested up against each other. So that's going to be super interesting, but definitely an aggressive Age 2 placement. Obviously with the aggro, you're completely correct, and I think it's an interesting play style to say the least. And you can see in the deck, I mean, you don't really see team pet rhinos, but I know the flail elephant rush has been kind of popular and it's starting to kind of take shape on the ladder, both in a 1v1 and in the team. So I'm excited to see that. plus the consulate shipments coming in. Kamchatka also lends itself to talk a little bit about the map. You have so many of these angles of approach, especially, funny enough, we're not talking about what in my favorite is this top angle actually in the 1v1, because you have this coin mine here and a couple of hunts and another coin mine on the other side, which is a lot of resources to contest. But I'm very curious to see. Okay, a couple of Sepoy coming out. We got some Cossacks coming out on the side of Lopsided Fluff. Let's see what he can see.
It's like Lopside's going to scout. Really smart thing to do right there, right? Like you see Sepoys, that typically means there's an Agra, and now he's like, okay, where is this thing, right? Because that all your strategy needs to be based around your ability to hold versus India's H2 Agra.
Absolutely, but he's got quite a few units on the field, so obviously we already have that Strellet mass already coming in. 10 Strelets right there, and 5 Cossacks out on the field. Do the card and ooh,
that might be pathing. That's a little bit of a blunder right there. The native embassy.
Unless he's trying to go down to this base, but okay, so bit of pinging. Can he just drop it? Just drop it down. Just drop it down. Just drop it down. Oh my goodness! Please don't tell me. You have to be kidding me. He was building it right here. He just kind of, I feel like he just kind of ignored it.
I think it spawned in his base, and he just might have been busy somewhere else. Both these African civs, they do require a lot of micro in your macro, if that makes sense. You have to really kind of where your influence is and all your res are going. So I could see just a slight mistake, and not just that, but I think he's now given away the position of the Agra. So let's see how Nicias and Fluff react to now that the jig is up. They know where the forward base is.
I think it's a bit of a struggle for sure, just because he initially sent in Shiftas, which is going to be, like you said, an outlaw sort of build. You get your native embassy up, and then that's going to allow you to then transition into a unit composition that would have been able to kind of go along with the Gindion build and then push. But I mean, just like you said, it is a lot to pay attention to, but you have to understand that that's your forward military production. Like you kind of have to stay on top of that, in my opinion.
Cossack raid coming in for Fluff. Looks like on Gindion, now that you know that the Agra is forward, you know that there's really nothing at home. And now they have to wait on top of it, like you said, because the forward-based builder wagon was killed. So
right.
This could be really precarious for Team Gindion and Gindion, because, man, you got Cossacks in your base, your momentum stalled. This is a tough spot, so let's see how they react.
It is a good raid, and we already saw one villager going down. It seems like Vindion's trying to stay on top of it. And he's not able to get that one in. And so let's take a look back down in the south. So more defensive buildings going up. I mean, these watchtowers are going to be able to produce units. So he was able to use those Red Sea wagons to get those out. Not enough, in my opinion, unit production coming out, but I guess that could be a result of the raids. And here we have a huge mass. Just really impressive. Yes, 20 Gaskenya right there, and then I think he does have some Somali Issa warriors. And so they're going to be able to pretty much deal with, well, a lot of the cavalry at least, but here on the part of Gindion, here we go, we get some desert archers coming in. And do you know those are outlaw units? That's right, skirmisher outlaw units?
Correct. The desert archer, it's kind of like a outlaw longbowman. They are now 3 pop down to 2 with Shiftas. They have 22 range base, which is farther than anything in Age 2. Ooh, these sowers are going to get on the straylets. And a very good firing animation. These are probably one of the strongest outlaw units, and something that Ethiopia is known for. That, and as we see Nicias demonstrating, the Gaskenya, just the mass.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are a musketeer type of unit that can fire faster as you get closer, so I feel like those were kind of wasted, but it seems like that mass is still kind of going to work, and he's got these Ordnance Besterio that, they're going to be able to kind of help clean those up just to kind of get a skirmisher mass in with the Sepoy, and these desert archers are just going to work. Very impressive. Flail Elephants now coming out, so getting some cavalry in there to get on top of these Issa warriors. And it looks like, I don't know if they're going to be able to push completely, but it does look like a pretty good fight. I'm very impressed that they were able to push into that. I'm wondering if they're going to have something to go behind this.
I don't know if you noticed, but there is Shotel warriors, which are supposed to, they're basically dismounted lancers onto the desert archers, but because of how powerful the desert archer close range attack speed is, I think they were able to actually overpull it. And wow, splitting the fight, because here at Gindion's Gindion is microing at 2 places at once, at home and then
No.
here. So,
Cossacks
ooh,
are now starting to
Cossacks.
go up and work on the Desert Archers. It looks like they should be able to clean that up, and it looks like he kind of just left those Cossacks up here to kind of idle the economy, but it looks like Gideon is still doing quite well for himself. Let's take a look at the villager count: 25, 22, 27, and
Wow.
18. So Indians definitely lagging behind because of those raids. And oh man, just going right up barrel to barrel. I love seeing that. Just getting right on top of these Strelets, making sure that you, and as you stated before, Platypus, that you want to be able to cull that mass of Russia. You want to make sure that they're not able to get rolling, because it's not the quality of the units, it's just the mass of the units.
You know, and both these players are doing a good job to kind of bully Russia. They are doing, you know, now they're sieging down the blockhouse, but they're, you know, focusing on the units. That's a mistake I've said in like the last game, but it's so true. We often focus on the blockhouse and not the units. And as you're seeing from like stronger players than like myself, is that they just automatically ignore it. Ooh, Shotel pop on the Desert Archers, but man, they just fire so fast.
Yeah,
You know,
look at this. Look at the stats. I mean, pretty decent range resist, 30%. You would think a low health pull, but that range resist is pretty darn good, and they do. Look at that fire speed. That's very impressive. It's a good, I would say, a very solid H2 unit, and just still, like, because he dedicated to this Gindion mass, he's caught out basically in terms of the counter.
right. A weakness too to think about of Ethiopia is they're, you know, they have all these res that they can kind of, you know, mix and match however they want through the market, but once it's gone, it's gone. And they do have really powerful mountain monasteries, but a lot of their units require wood and food, so that may not necessarily be the best macro. So I think Nicias is an
Oh,
wow, and they're gonna
yeah,
call it now.
yeah, they just don't want to play it out, and that's it.
Outlaws still
I'm a little.
stomps.
I was thinking, okay, I was kind of
Well,
thinking that maybe. Well, I guess like with what do you do? I mean, the initial push. I mean, you don't have a cast switch ready. You know, you have too much Gaskenya, and you have a huge skirmisher mass here. And then what is he going to do? He's going to have Gossack, but he still has his Sepoy up. So I don't. You know, I mean, they kind of did the same thing in the sense of the Gaskenya being a heavy infantry mass, complementing the Strelet, which was going to be your light infantry mass. They basically did the same thing here with the Desert Archer and the Sepoy, but I don't know. I guess the ability to mass Desert Archers, they were just the superior unit. I don't know. What do you think?
well, I think there's a few things that went on in this game that led to this quick overtune, and you see this a lot again in high level play when people are able to really punish each other. You know, first off, you know, Nicias and Fluff, I mean, they were on top of that wagon when it went by. They had
Mm-hmm.
pretty good scouting, but they just didn't think. And it's almost like deceptive, right? Like, what are the odds somebody would send a villager unseen all the way across the map, right?
Right.
And yet, this map in particular, and again, this happened to me as well in my tournament series, that agra is there. And when that agra is there, it's like on your underbelly. It's really hard to defend. You can't really wall because you've got this trade line in between. It's a long distance anyways. There's not a lot of res on your kind of, you know, section of the map, so you can just get bled dry. It's an absolutely brutal placement. And good, you know, Vindian and Gideon are kind of known for these like mad scientist builds. This was really impressive to see them just kind of go down to like brass tacks and you know, uh, just bare knuckle box. You know, they're doing a rush, they're doing solid unit comps, they're doing early aggression, and you know, just to show that this is a team that sure they can do a lot of kind of crazy stuff, but they can kind of, you know, get down with a meta build and absolutely punish you with it. So I'm really impressed with Gideon Vinians. I'm also impressed with Nicias and Lopsided Fluff. I mean, this is the game one, and they are uh, quick to react. They've got a good build. Each one of their deck and card order was solid, but I think what it came down to was that build order. And again, this is Age of Empires 3, and you guys are probably going to see this come up a lot in the tournament. How sometimes you make a choice in the beginning of the game with no idea what the opponent's building. In this case, perhaps if they would have scouted the deck and if they would have known Gideon, they would have known he's the outlaw guy. But uh, they played standard. They played standard well, but the build countered their build, and there's very little they could do. And before they knew it, a game that they had even, you know, sunk the forward base, they had a good raid going, was just slipped right out of their hands.
Yeah, you can see that the raids did a pretty good number on Vindian. I don't think, you know, we can imagine that this graph would have been that much worse. And you can see how both on Nicias' side and Lopsided Fluff, I mean, naturally Russia's going to tend to military unit count outmass you. Um, but you can tell that Vindian was a bit slowed down. But I mean, just I just think it just comes down to pound unit composition. Just like like you said, like in high level play, you kind of scout the best you can, especially in a team game. You have your build order coming in. You basically, it's almost like a poker match. You put your cards on the table and you see what the dealer deals, right? Like, and you don't know what's going to happen. It's a flip almost. And so if I look at military unit population, yeah, look at that. I mean, like you have these high quality desert archers, and I mean, just an explosion of unit mass. If we go back, just to be able to set up this base, and he has these, and imagine how much worse it would have been with the embassy. They had these watchtower towers. He played it straight, and then they were able to push. And I mean, even in terms of economy, though, yeah, impressive. But I mean, still right alongside Gideon is able to, and all these bumps are probably livestock sell, but economy, like even though Vindian was idled a little bit, he still contributed his mass, and they were still able to get in there and push for the win. Impressive.
It was, I mean, these guys, and again, credit to Vindian and Gideon for, almost like a disaster in that opening. Someone like me probably would have, could have even just continued to make bad decisions, right? But they stayed calm. They said, okay, we have a good strategy. Let's stick to it. They lost a builder. Okay, well, let's send the watchtowers next. I got raided really hard. You know what? I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, focusing on military, and hoping this rush knocks them off. And, by not panicking, by not uh, overthinking something and just sticking to a plan, even though things weren't going as well. I mean, if we go back to the military population and go by team, ooh,
Yeah, I was just looking at the look how prevented he was for sure. Yeah, but if we go to military unit population,
just collect team
team
stats real
stats.
fast. Yeah, they had to take a big engagement and they were able to pull it off. So impressive by Vindian and Gideon to stay in the game, show people that hey, we have kind of interesting builds, but sometimes we can just beat you over the head. And credit to Nicias and Lopsided Fluff for doing everything right, and that's just sometimes how the cookie crumbles. Now, this will be the only game of the series that we are casting, so just so you guys know, this does end up eventually Nicias and Lopsided Fluff are able to pull through. They will be advancing to the next round, and we will be seeing even more of them. This is the swan song of Indian and Gideon, but what a way to go! And just to show people, these are very strong team players, and not just with cute builds, but with the meta too. So
Right.
better luck to them in the next tournament, and we will hope to see more of Nicias and Lopsided Fluff here in our next series.
Awesome. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching our cast of games here on the Age of Bison YouTube channel. If you like what we do, please hit that subscribe button, leave a like, helps with the traction, and continue to make us one of the, if not the fastest growing Age of Empires 3 YouTube channel. We really appreciate it, guys. We hope you have a great day, and we will see you in the next one.